In the heart of a coastal town, where the salty breeze mingled with the scent of fresh catch, life unfolded at a steady rhythm. The sun rose over the horizon, casting golden hues across the shimmering waters, and the lively sounds of gulls echoed in the air as they swooped low in search of breakfast. This town, once a bustling hub for trade and fishing, now bore the weight of economic challenges, yet, it remained rich in character and community spirit. The local fishermen were as much a part of the landscape as the boats bobbing in the harbor. Each morning, they gathered at the pier, their weathered hands skilled from years of labor. Among them was Tom, a middle-aged fisherman with deep-set eyes that reflected both wisdom and weariness. He arose before dawn each day, driven by dedication rather than ambition. His small boat, aptly named Endeavor, creaked under the weight of his modest provisions, nets, tackle, and hope. On this particular morning, Tom prepared to cast his nets into the shimmering sea. The rhythmic sound of waves crashing against the hull filled him with a sense of peace. Yet beneath that calm exterior lay an unsettling reality: business had been slow, and fish stocks were dwindling. He often found himself reflecting on the disparity between his life and that of those who sailed on luxury yachts or frequented upscale restaurants along the coastline. As Tom navigated through familiar waters, he couldn't help but notice a shift in his usual route. A feeling nagged at him, a soft tug in his gut that whispered change was coming. Perhaps it was merely a gut feeling amplified by hunger pangs. After all, he had consumed little more than scraps and hope over the past week. Dismissing the thought, he turned his focus to work and cast his nets wide into the depths below. Later that day, after a long but fruitless outing at sea, Tom returned to shore with only a few fish clinging to his net, barely enough for dinner or future sales. As he pulled up to his usual spot on the pier, he caught sight of a stranger hunched over on a nearby bench, the kind of bench where locals often gathered to share stories or sip coffee as they watched fishermen haul in their daily catch. The stranger looked disheveled and wore clothes that hung loosely from his emaciated frame. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion and despair. Drawn by an instinctive need to connect with another soul who appeared to be struggling, Tom approached him. "Hey there," Tom offered gently. "You hungry?" The stranger glanced up, surprised by the fisherman's unexpected kindness. "Yeah. I could eat something," he replied hesitantly. Tom's heart softened. Fishing had been lean lately, but he couldn't ignore this man's plight. After all, they were both navigating rough waters in their own ways. Without hesitation, he invited the stranger back to his modest home, a small cottage just off the coast, and prepared to share what little he had left in his pantry. In that humble dwelling adorned with fishing memorabilia and photographs of days gone by, they sat together at a rickety wooden table covered with scratches and stains from countless meals shared over time. As Tom cooked what little fish he had caught mixed with some old potatoes and vegetables from his garden, they exchanged stories. The stranger revealed pieces of his life, trials that led him to this very moment, loss of work due to unforeseen circumstances, mounting debts that left him homeless and hopeless. Tom listened intently as he served their meal, recognizing threads of shared humanity woven through their separate struggles. It was during this simple act, sharing food, that an invisible bond formed between them, two men grappling with fate's ironies yet finding comfort in companionship. As they savored their last meal together under flickering candlelight, laughter flowed freely amidst heartfelt confessions. For Tom, it was a reminder that even amidst scarcity, emotionally or materially, there could be moments of profound connection when one extended kindness to another. That night marked more than just a shared meal. It ignited something within Tom, a flicker of hope amid uncertainty and bitterness caused by hard times. Little did either man know that tomorrow would bring an unexpected tide into their lives, one that would challenge everything they believed about fate's unpredictable currents. With full bellies and lighter hearts but heavy thoughts lingering on their minds, both men settled into sleep with dreams filled with possibility, the kind that comes from sharing one's last bit with another. As Tom pulled his small boat onto the damp wooden planks of the pier, the scent of salt water mingled with the remnants of fresh fish hung in the air, a familiar and comforting aroma. He paused, wiping the sweat from his brow, and scanned his surroundings. The chatter of townsfolk filled the air as they went about their business, but his attention soon turned to the figure slumped over on a nearby bench. The stranger was a stark contrast to the vibrancy of the town. With clothes that looked a size too large and matted hair that fell in unkempt tufts around his face, he seemed rather ghost-like amid the bustling life surrounding him. Tom felt an immediate pang of sympathy as he observed the stranger's hollow cheeks and downturned gaze. He couldn't help but wonder how someone could find themselves in such a state. As he drew closer, Tom noticed that the man did not even flinch at his approach. There was an unsettling stillness about him, as if he had resigned himself to watching life pass without participating in it. The fisherman took a deep breath, feeling a stirring in his heart that urged him to act. "Hey there," Tom called out gently, trying to break through the veils of despair that seemed to surround the stranger like a fog. "You hungry?" The man lifted his head slightly, revealing shadowed eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. "Yeah. I could eat something," he replied hesitantly, as if unsure whether to trust this unexpected kindness. "Come on then," Tom urged, motioning for the man to follow him. "I've got some food back at my place, nothing fancy, but it should fill you up." Without waiting for a response, he turned and began walking toward his cottage. For a moment, silence hung heavily between them as they made their way through the streets. Tom sensed an underlying tension in the air. It was clear this interaction could go many ways. Yet beneath that uncertainty lay an unexpected solidarity. Both men were grappling with their own burdens, though from vastly different walks of life. "People can be rough here sometimes," Tom commented casually, trying to ease any anxiety felt by his companion. "But I try to look after my neighbors when I can." The stranger finally spoke again, this time more softly. "Thanks. I haven't had many kind offers lately." A heaviness settled over Tom's heart. "What brings you here?" he asked as they approached his front door. The man hesitated before answering, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lost my job, kept searching for work until I ran out of options. Now it's just survival." He paused, searching for words that felt right. "I thought maybe things would get better if I just kept looking, but it got worse instead." Tom could hear the ache in his voice as they stepped inside the cottage, a modest space filled with fishing memorabilia, nets hung on walls and photographs captured moments shared between family members on previous fishing trips. The atmosphere held warmth despite its humble decor. "I'm Tom," he introduced himself while grabbing some plates from a cabinet. "Who do I have the pleasure of sharing my last bit of food with?" "Jake," the stranger replied quietly, lowering his gaze again as if ashamed by both his name and circumstance. As Tom prepared their meal, a simple mix of fish caught earlier that day alongside hearty potatoes, he couldn't shake off Jake's story from replaying in his mind like an old record stuck on repeat. Life had thrown Jake into turbulence far beyond any buoyancy one could find at sea. "I never thought I'd find myself like this," Jake continued after several moments of silence passed between them. "It's hard not to feel invisible." Tom empathized deeply with those words. Even amid physical struggles to make ends meet, wearing despair often felt more isolating than any form of material poverty. "Oh, trust me," he responded with sincerity. "We all have days when we feel drowned by our own worries, as if nothing we do matters." Gratitude flickered across Jake's drawn face as he listened intently while they sat down together at Tom's rickety wooden table illuminated by flickering candlelight, their meals served generously on chipped ceramic plates. Together they shared both food and stories, laughter mingling with spilled emotions amidst heartfelt confessions about dreams unfulfilled and fears realized, creating an invisible bond bridging two worlds separated by circumstance but united through kindness. In that moment of connection under flickering light coupled with honest conversation, both men found joy in vulnerability even amid personal storms, moments illuminating possibilities for new beginnings hidden within challenges faced daily amidst waves constantly crashing against hopes afloat upon uncertain seas. As Tom set the table in his modest cottage, the scent of sautéed fish and steamed potatoes wafted through the air, mingling with the flickering candlelight that cast a warm glow over the small dining area. Each plate, though chipped and mismatched, held an essence of care, a reflection of the connection he hoped to forge with his guest, Jake. This meal would not just fill their bellies, it was a bridge to understanding, a moment suspended between two lives shaped by hardship. As they settled down at the rickety wooden table, Tom served the food with a genuine smile. "I hope this is enough," he said lightly, trying to ease any lingering tension. "It's not gourmet, but it's honest food." Jake looked at the meal with wide eyes, initially unsure how to respond to such unexpected generosity. "It looks great," he replied softly, his voice barely above a whisper. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up his fork, hesitating for just a moment before taking his first bite. The flavor burst on his tongue, a simple yet profound taste of warmth and care, and Jake couldn't suppress the smile that crept across his face. "Wow, this is really good," he said, genuine delight breaking through the heaviness that had hung around him like a shroud. Tom felt a swell of warmth at Jake's reaction. "Glad you like it," he replied, settling into a rhythm as they began to eat. With every bite shared between them came laughter, stories, and an unguarded exchange of poignancy that made the very air around them feel electric. "What do you miss most about your life before all this?" Tom asked, probing gently, inviting Jake to share more about himself. The question lingered in the air even after silence settled between them, an invitation into Jake's world. Jake set down his fork and sighed deeply. "I miss having purpose," he admitted slowly. "Work used to give me that, waking up each day knowing I was contributing something meaningful. Now, I just float from one day to the next." Tom nodded knowingly. "I understand that feeling," he replied, remembering how fishing had once filled him with pride and joy but now often felt like a fight against dwindling stocks and rising bills. "There's something about having a routine, a reason to rise each morning." The conversation flowed effortlessly between them as they shared stories of their pasts, the joys and challenges that defined their journeys. Tom spoke fondly of his early days fishing with his father, tales laced with nostalgia and rich memories painted against the backdrop of sunrises over the endless sea. "I remember my first real catch," Tom chuckled, eyes twinkling with mirth. "It was about half my size. I thought I could haul it in without any help." His laughter echoed in the small space as he encapsulated both humor and vulnerability. Jake joined in the laughter, an infectious sound that felt foreign yet soothing after so much silence. "I can only imagine. I wish I could say I have my own legendary catch stories," he added with mock seriousness. "Mine mostly involve getting caught in the rain or losing tools overboard." Their conversation deepened as they shared their dreams, both broken and budding, as if laying bare pieces of their souls on an honest canvas painted with vulnerability. In those moments of connection, Tom felt hope return to his heart, kindled by Jake's willingness to share his own pain. "Sometimes I think we overlook how important these small acts are," Tom murmured thoughtfully as they finished their meal. "Sitting here together like this, it reminds me that we're not alone in our struggles." Jake met Tom's gaze directly, his expression earnest and filled with appreciation. "You're right," he agreed softly. "Honestly, I didn't expect anything like this today. Just a small conversation over some food feels like a lifeline." In that simple act of sharing a meal, not lavish or extraordinary but deeply human, they found solace within each other's company. The warmth radiating from their exchange transcended their individual circumstances, it became a testament to resilience through empathy forged across dinner plates that night. As they cleared the table together, Tom caught sight of the first stars beginning to twinkle outside through the window. It felt significant, a reminder that even in darkness, lights always emerged, illuminating unknown paths ahead. They were two ships anchored together amidst rough waters, while challenges remained ever present beyond those four walls, warmth wrapped around them tonight, an embrace promising hope lingering steadfastly just beyond tomorrow's horizon. Jake turned back to Tom as they washed the dishes side by side, more at ease now than he had been all week. With sincerity etched into his features, he expressed what lingered on both their minds. I don't know what tomorrow will bring for either of us, but tonight? Tonight feels special. Tom smiled back. His heart lightened from years weighed down by burdens unseen until uncovered through shared kindness extending outwards toward brighter days awaiting everyone sailing forth together navigating those vast uncertain uncharted ocean sourcing still homesickness unfurling beneath ever-constant blinking stars shimmering nearby glistening illumination beckoning onward into futures filled sparkling possibilities always shimmering brightly despite currents, swirling haphazardly crashing. Life weaving relentless storms tasted fulfilling life blooming beautifully amidst newfound friendships revitalized promising warmly wrapped embraces spattered lovingly across worlds woven apart suddenly brought close forever lifted aloft gliding smoothly onward drifting toward vivid horizons glowing bright through every lasting morsel shared freely embraced tonight. As the night wore on, Tom sat alone in his cottage, the warmth of the shared meal still lingering in the air like a comforting embrace. The candle flickered on the table, casting playful shadows that danced across the walls, and he found himself lost in thought, contemplating the evening's events and their profound impact. Jake's stories echoed in his mind, the way he had spoken about losing his sense of purpose, how he floated from day to day without direction. Tom could relate all too well. He thought about the days when fishing had filled him with joy and pride, transforming the mundane into something magical. Now, it often felt like a struggle against time and tide, with lean catches and mounting bills overshadowing the once beloved craft. Was I really doing enough? He pondered aloud, gazing into the depths of the flickering candlelight. Here I am, clinging to my own worries while so many others are fighting battles unseen. The weight of his introspection pressed down on him, a reminder that helping others could also lighten one's own burdens. His thoughts drifted to moments spent with Jake, how their laughter had intertwined amid shared meals and stories. That connection felt significant, it was a reminder that even in their respective hardships, they were not truly alone. Tom recalled how Jake's eyes had brightened when he spoke of simple joys, how a smile could break through layers of despair like sunlight piercing through thick clouds. What if I could do more? Tom mused as he leaned back in his chair, absorbing the silence that enveloped him. His heart swelled with a newfound sense of purpose, a desire to reach out and make a difference not just for himself but for others who might be struggling just as Jake had. Maybe this is what I've been missing, connecting with my community again. He began to envision ways he could foster connections within his town. Perhaps he could organize community dinners for those who felt isolated or create a small fishing group where individuals could share techniques or simply enjoy each other's company. Tom felt invigorated by the idea, it was as if a spark had been lit within him, illuminating paths previously hidden beneath layers of routine and complacency. The weight of his own hardship still loomed large, but now they felt less isolating and more like shared experiences woven into the fabric of life. He remembered his father's teachings about community, the importance of helping one another through tough times and celebrating each other's victories, no matter how small. It's what keeps us afloat, he recalled his father saying on countless occasions. Tom moved to the window and opened it slightly, allowing the cool night breeze to sweep inside. The salty scent of the ocean wafted through, mingling with fresh air as stars began to twinkle above, tiny reminders of hope stretching across the vast sky. He considered that despite everything happening around him, there existed beauty in this world waiting to be acknowledged. Helping others doesn't mean I have to solve all their problems, he realized with clarity. Sometimes it's simply about being present, offering an ear to listen or a meal to share. That sentiment resonated deeply within him, each small act held power beyond measure when offered genuinely. The clock on the wall ticked softly as Tom made plans for tomorrow, he would consider reaching out to local fishermen for support gatherings, perhaps even inviting Jake back for another meal, or better yet, introducing him to others in need of companionship. It felt essential to cultivate connections, nurture friendships that blossomed even amid adversity. He couldn't predict how these changes would unfold or what challenges lay ahead. Yet amidst uncertainty lingered excitement, a new chapter brimming with possibilities evolving organically from kindness shared between two men navigating life's turbulent waters together. As Tom settled down for bed that night, he couldn't shake off feelings of hope swirling inside him like waves crashing against rocks. For too long, he had felt anchored by fears and worries. Now he was buoyed by aspirations ignited anew through compassion extended outwardly toward others seeking solace from life's storms. With closing eyes came dreams filled with potential, visions dancing before him, of neighbors gathering around tables filled with food shared freely among friends forged anew through laughter echoing harmoniously beneath starlit skies culminating beautifully across ever-blooming horizons rising ever brighter just beyond every moment unfolding steadily onward evermore deepening joys burgeoning bountifully nourished hearts bravely sailing forth together crafting tales written boldly upon shores. Endless fully alive tethered gently together woven strong assuredly watching dawn breaking once more promising eternally renewed kindness glimmering brightly reflecting forever on waves rolling endlessly ashore guiding all hearts home. The morning sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the sleepy coastal town. A soft breeze fluttered through the streets as the townsfolk began to stir, resuming their daily routines against the backdrop of glistening waves lapping gently at the pier. Yet today felt different, there was a palpable buzz in the air, an undercurrent of excitement that rippled through the community. As Tom emerged from his cottage, he stretched and inhaled deeply, savoring the salty scent mingling with the morning dew. He glanced at his modest boat, Endeavor, still nestled in its spot by the pier. There was something peaceful about the quiet that enveloped him, but it was soon interrupted by a commotion coming from further down the shoreline. Curiosity piqued, Tom walked toward the pier, where he found a gathering crowd staring out at the water. He followed their gaze and felt his heart skip a beat when he saw it, a massive yacht gliding smoothly into view, its sleek hull shining like polished marble under the sunlight. The vessel was unlike anything he had ever seen, a true behemoth adorned with opulent details that sparkled as if it were made of diamonds. "Martha, look at that!" exclaimed an older woman nearby, pointing toward the yacht as if it were a mythical creature emerging from the depths of the sea. "Can you believe such splendor?" Word spread quickly throughout the small town like wildfire. "It's the biggest yacht I've ever laid eyes on," another man exclaimed, his arms gesturing animatedly as spectators gathered around him. What kind of billionaire would have a yacht like that? Tom stood at the edge of the pier, his mouth slightly agape as he took in the sight of wealth magnified to an almost surreal level. The yacht moved gracefully closer until finally, it docked alongside a nearby slip. The sound of ropes being tossed and crew members bustling about only amplified the sense of nostalgia for Tom, the vibrant days of fishing when life had seemed simpler yet filled with purpose. "Who do you think owns it?" asked a young boy beside him, his eyes wide with wonder. "Probably someone who thinks they're above everyone," replied an older fisherman bitterly, arms crossed over his chest. "People like that don't understand what it means to struggle." A wave of mixed emotions washed over Tom as he observed his neighbors reacting to this unexpected arrival. It wasn't just curiosity, there was a twinge of resentment in some voices, an acknowledgement of disparity that resonated all too well amidst their own daily struggles. Yet as he stood there, part of him couldn't help but feel mesmerized by the spectacle. After a few moments filled with hushed whispers and excited chatter, a gangway was lowered from the grand yacht, allowing guests to disembark. The first figure to step onto solid ground was striking, a tall man dressed in crisp white pants and a polo shirt that looked tailor-made. He exuded confidence as if he owned not only the yacht but also the very air around him. "Look at him," whispered a voice among the crowd. "He looks like he just walked off a magazine cover." Tom could see others craning their necks for a better view, their expressions varied from admiration to skepticism. Was this man really any different than them? Did wealth define character? As thoughts raced through Tom's mind, he found himself recalling how Jake had shared struggles similar to his own, mere moments before they had shared food and laughter. With each passing second, more figures stepped off the boat, revealing a group adorned in luxury attire, their demeanor confident and carefree as they descended onto what they likely viewed as their temporary playground. Tom felt an ache in his chest as he noticed both children and adults appear drawn to this lavish display of prosperity, adults whispering to one another while pointing excitedly at gleaming accessories or shouting out jovial laughter. Amidst all this spectacle, Tom felt an urge to step forward, to connect with these newcomers on some level. Perhaps it was an instinct born from his recent revelations about fostering connections within his own community. Would they offer anything meaningful beyond superficiality? Could they truly relate to lives bound by hardship? As if sensing his thoughts drifting toward possibility, he noticed one woman among them step forward, a little girl grasping her hand tightly. She looked around curiously, her eyes wide with innocence, taking in everything this new environment offered her. In that moment of connection between worlds so vastly different yet intertwined through shared humanity, between laughter echoing beneath radiant skies and whispers entwined with dreams, Tom understood something fundamental. While fortunes might separate them materially, threads weaving life stories revealed similarities remarkable enough to transcend disparities steeped deeply within their lives. And as he stood there contemplating this unexpected arrival before him, the larger-than-life yacht docking amidst cherished memories now resurfacing, he knew that tomorrow held untold potential, not solely resting upon waves but rather embarking anew on paths illuminated brightly by kindness and purpose shared both among neighbors struggling together, standing united, weaving seamlessly through experiences, bravely extending warmth gathered harmoniously even amidst uncertain tides dividing distant shores crossed behind. The moment the grand yacht docked, a wave of excitement swept through the coastal town, electrifying the air like a sudden storm. Residents abandoned their morning routines, flocking to the pier in droves, eyes wide with wonder and anticipation. Whispers rippled through the crowd, each person speculating about the yacht's purpose and its owner. "Martha, did you see how huge that thing is?" An older man exclaimed, gesturing animatedly with his hands as if trying to capture the enormity of the vessel in the air around them. "I've never seen anything like it. Do you think it's a celebrity? Or maybe some big-shot businessman?" His companion mused, her voice tinged with disbelief. The rumor mill spun rapidly as they shared their theories. The crowd leaned in closer to one another, sharing bits of gossip and excited projections. "I heard from Larry at the cafe that it belongs to a billionaire who just sold his tech company," chimed in a woman with bright red hair who had come rushing from her house without even fixing her morning bun. "They say he's been spending his fortune on lavish yachts and private islands." Tom stood slightly apart from the throng, observing the spectacle unfold with a mix of fascination and trepidation. He had witnessed his fair share of tourists come and go, but this was different. This yacht carried an aura of wealth that felt foreign yet tantalizing. He listened intently as others spun elaborate tales about who could possibly own such a luxurious vessel. "Maybe it's one of those reality TV stars," chuckled an elderly fisherman named Hank, shaking his head incredulously. "I can picture them flaunting their riches while we're here trying to scrape by." His tone held bitterness masked under layers of humor, reflecting sentiments that resonated with many in attendance. "What do you think they'll do here?" asked a curious teenager who had come down from his bike ride along the shore. His eyes shimmered with excitement as he glanced at Tom for insight. "I reckon they'll probably throw some fancy parties," Tom replied thoughtfully, though his heart tugged at him to express more profoundly how such ostentation contrasted sharply with their daily lives filled with struggles. The chatter continued unabated as groups dissected every detail about the yacht, the perfectly manicured deck, the gleaming surfaces reflecting sunlight like mirrors, and even the crew members dressed in crisp uniforms who flitted about tending to tasks unseen. It was as if they were witnessing something out of a movie, a fantasy world colliding unceremoniously into their quaint reality. "Look at how those people are dressed," someone exclaimed derisively, pointing toward elegantly clad guests beginning to disembark from the yacht. Their attire was polished and expensive, fancy shoes glinting under the sun while laughter bubbled up among them like champagne fizzing over after being uncorked. "It'll be good for tourism," ventured another voice amid whispers laced with envy and intrigue alike. "If they spend some cash around here, maybe we could benefit from it too." Tom wasn't entirely convinced by that sentiment. He understood that while some could see opportunities arising from this arrival, others felt marginalized by stark contrasts now laid bare before their eyes, the wealth displayed so openly reminding them of what they lacked. As more guests stepped onto solid ground, Tom felt an internal conflict growing within him. Should he approach these newcomers? There was something about this gathering that stirred old memories inside him, days spent fishing alongside friends whose loyalty forged bonds stronger than gold itself, days when community mattered more than appearances or currency. Just then, he caught sight of a young girl stepping off the yacht hand in hand with her mother, her innocent eyes scanning everything before her in wide-eyed wonderment. In that momentary connection between two worlds so vastly different yet intertwined through shared human experiences, between laughter echoing beneath radiant skies and whispers cut through dreams, Tom recognized something essential. While fortunes might separate them materially, their stories would ultimately share common threads woven through life itself. What would happen if we reached out to them? Tom wondered silently as snippets of laughter floated up from below where voices pitched high amid sparkling conversations danced between waves crashing gently against decks moored nearby. A beautiful cacophony unfolding against nature's backdrop colored vivid blue along untold shores waiting patiently beyond sight offered just ahead shimmering invitingly beckoning boldly onward together where kindness might bridge chasms deep beyond first impressions revealed ever anew guiding hearts homeward. Finding peace amid chaos swirling fleeting moments spent precious together weaving friendships budding ever stronger lasting beyond time eternal. As the gangway descended from the magnificent yacht, the crowd drew closer, anticipation crackling in the air like static electricity. Tom found himself among them, curiosity pulling him forward, despite the unease brewing in his heart. The moment felt pivotal, the intersection of his humble life and the extravagant world represented by this vessel. The first person to step onto solid ground was the tall man Tom had noticed earlier, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that looked as if it had been stitched by a master craftsman. There was an air of confidence about him that commanded attention, and as he surveyed his surroundings, a knowing smile spread across his face, making him seem approachable despite his wealth. "Look at that!" someone exclaimed as whispers swept through the crowd. "He looks like he owns half the world." Tom watched intently as more guests began to disembark, each one adorned in designer attire and exuding an aura of privilege. Yet, something about the tall man struck Tom as different from the rest. There was a warmth in his demeanor that hinted at more than just a life of luxury. Just as Tom was processing this thought, another figure emerged from the yacht, a woman with flowing hair and a bright smile. She held hands with a little girl who appeared to be no older than 6. The child tugged eagerly at her mother's arm, eyes wide with wonder as she took in the sights around her. Tom's heart leapt when he recognized the woman. It was Jake's sister, whom he had met briefly during Jake's recounting of his struggles. In that instant, all the pieces began to click together. This man must be Jake's brother-in-law or perhaps even an old friend who had been reached out to during Jake's darkest moments. The atmosphere shifted as Tom's mind raced with questions. How had this billionaire come to be connected to Jake? Was it mere coincidence or something deeper at play? As the gathering crowd buzzed with speculation, Tom decided to listen closely. The man stepped forward confidently and raised a hand to invite silence. "Hello everyone. I'm Richard Marlowe," he introduced himself with a charismatic smile. "I'm here not just for leisure but with intentions of giving back to this wonderful community." Gasps echoed through the crowd, murmurs of disbelief mixed with intrigue at this unexpected declaration. "We've been coming here for years," Richard continued, "and I've seen firsthand how hard you all work. It's time I did my part." Tom felt his heart race at Richard's words. They seemed almost scripted yet carried an authenticity that resonated within him. Richard explained that he planned to invest in local businesses and support community projects aimed at revitalizing the town, ideas that could transform struggling lives into stories of success and resilience. "Thank you for welcoming us," Richard said sincerely, glancing around at the faces before him. "My goal is not just to bring wealth but also opportunities for everyone here." He paused for effect before adding, "I want to help those who need it most, like my brother-in-law Jake." At the mention of Jake's name, a ripple moved through Tom, a mix of surprise and understanding washed over him. Richard continued speaking passionately about initiatives he hoped to launch: community dinners where locals could share their stories, educational programs for children, even fishing workshops that would help bring families together while passing on traditions. Tom stood frozen amidst the throng of spectators. He could hardly process what was unfolding before him. Richard's words ignited something profound within him, a flicker of hope fueled by genuine intentions rather than empty promises. "I believe we can create a space where every voice matters," Richard concluded earnestly, looking directly at Tom for a brief moment before scanning over those gathered around him. "Together, we can brighten the future for everyone here." A wave of applause erupted from the crowd, a spontaneous response filled with gratitude and cautious optimism as people began exchanging excited glances among themselves. Could this actually lead to change? Could someone from such wealth truly understand their struggles? Tom's mind raced back to his recent conversations with Jake, their shared meal illuminated by kindness amidst hardship, and suddenly everything felt interconnected in ways he never imagined possible. Their stories entwined like threads weaving through life's fabric, awaiting fresh beginnings, waiting patiently ahead. As laughter erupted anew amid joyous chatter surrounding connections finally forged between worlds once so vastly apart, Tom knew something significant was taking shape within this small coastal town, something powerful enough to bridge gaps once widened beyond repair, promising brighter tomorrows emerging brightly just beyond enormous waves crashing between distant shores forever tethered tightly together. As the crowd buzzed with excitement over Richard Marlowe's arrival, Tom felt a calling to step into a role that transcended his identity as merely a fisherman. He could see the hope radiating from the townspeople but also sensed an underlying tension, an uncertainty about whether the promises made by the billionaire would truly lead to meaningful change. It was in this moment that Tom realized he had the power to bridge the gap between Richard's wealth and the community's needs. Determined to act, Tom approached Richard once more, his heart racing with a mix of ambition and resolve. "Mr. Marlowe," he began, his voice steady, "I appreciate your intentions, but it might be wise to engage directly with the community. They need to see that you're not just here for a photo op or a fleeting moment of generosity." Richard tilted his head, considering Tom's words. "You're right, and I want to ensure my efforts resonate with those who matter most, the people living here," he replied earnestly. "What do you suggest?" Tom thought for a moment, drawing on his recent experiences with Jake and the struggles shared among the townspeople. Organizing town hall meetings might help. It's essential to create a space where locals can voice their ideas and concerns, where they feel heard, he said passionately, feeling the weight of his community's needs pressing upon him. Richard nodded, enthusiasm brightening his expression. "I like that idea. A direct connection will encourage trust and collaboration." He then turned to address the growing crowd, calling out to them as Tom stood by his side. "Everyone." His voice boomed across the pier, capturing their attention. "I want to work closely with you all. Your experiences and insights are invaluable. Let's not just talk about change, let's create it together." The townspeople exchanged glances filled with curiosity, apprehension beginning to melt away under Richard's earnest intent. Tom watched as people began to step forward, encouraged by the possibility of being part of something bigger than themselves. The dialogue had shifted from mere speculation to genuine connection, something Tom had longed for during his quiet moments of reflection. Soon after, they convened an impromptu meeting at the nearby community center, a modest building that held countless memories of gatherings past. The room filled quickly with enthusiastic residents ready to share their thoughts and dreams for what their town could become. Tom took a seat at the table, positioned near Richard, feeling a unique sense of purpose swell within him. As discussions unfolded, ideas flowed freely, creating a local farmers market to support local agriculture, revitalizing parks for family gatherings, and developing programs aimed at empowering young adults with job skills. Each proposal was met with energetic nods and passionate dialogue, a testament to the resilience that had always defined this community. Tom noticed how Richard absorbed each suggestion with genuine interest, asking probing questions and offering insights that reflected an understanding of the local ethos. It wasn't just business for him, he actively engaged with residents as individuals rather than statistics or opportunities. The room filled with warmth as hands were raised in collaboration rather than conflict, fostering an atmosphere of camaraderie that hadn't been felt in quite some time. Yet amid the excitement lay Tom's foremost concern: would these plans materialize? He couldn't shake off moments spent with Jake, who had spoken so passionately about hope and struggle intertwined like threads in a tapestry awaiting creation. If they could harness this energy collectively, perhaps they would indeed seek lasting change. At one point during the meeting, Tom stood up to speak, addressing both Richard and his fellow townspeople. "This is not just about new funding or projects, it's about unity," he said earnestly. "Let's remember that kindness and compassion can inspire action beyond financial means. We need to ensure every voice counts and every individual feels valued." Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd, resonating with the collective yearning for connection, a desire for a community stitched together by compassion instead of divided by disparity. As discussions continued late into the afternoon, laughter mingled with serious considerations while suggestions morphed into plans ready for implementation. Each exchange affirmed closeness among them, igniting determination fueled by trust blossoming beneath newfound friendships sparked along lives intertwined more tightly than ever before. When they finally adjourned, Tom felt lighter than he had in years, a sense of belonging renewed in ways once thought lost beyond reach. Richard's vision aligned seamlessly with their own aspirations as he committed himself wholeheartedly to building pathways toward brighter futures, a promise echoing beautifully fulfilling lives together illuminating their entire coastal town revitalized raised anew like sunlight breaking unhindered over tranquil waters stretched vast invitingly awaiting hearts united forevermore sailing bravely forth. Weeks passed after Richard Marlowe's visit, and the small coastal town began to transform in ways that felt both exhilarating and surreal. The initial excitement that had rippled through the community was no longer just idle chatter, it had evolved into tangible action. Tom watched with pride as his neighbors banded together, buoyed by the possibility of change and a renewed sense of purpose. The first initiative to take shape was the community dinners that Richard had promised, a monthly event where locals gathered to share food, laughter, and stories. These evenings became a celebration of togetherness, set against the backdrop of twinkling lights strung across the community center and warm aromas wafting from potluck dishes brought by everyone. Tom took on a pivotal role in organizing these gatherings, ensuring that each dinner not only fed hungry bellies but also nourished spirits. During one such dinner, Tom stood at the front of the room, glancing around at the smiling faces illuminated by candlelight. He felt a wave of gratitude wash over him as he recalled how far they had come. "It's incredible to see everyone here," he began, his voice steady yet filled with warmth. "These dinners remind us that we're not alone in our struggles. Together, we can create something beautiful." As murmurs of agreement filled the air, Tom's gaze landed on Jake, who sat at a table surrounded by new friends. Since Richard's arrival, Jake had found not only support but also a renewed sense of purpose. He had become actively involved in community efforts, helping to organize workshops aimed at teaching job skills to young adults, a direct response to Richard's vision. Tom felt a swell of pride for his friend, Jake's journey mirrored many others who had previously felt lost. Outside of the dinners, Richard's influence continued to resonate throughout the town. He followed through on his commitment to invest in local businesses and initiated funding for projects that aligned with community needs. A local farmers' market blossomed in the town square, providing fresh produce while allowing local farmers to showcase their hard work. It was a vibrant hub where conversations flowed easily among neighbors and newcomers alike. As children played nearby amid laughter and chatter, Tom often found himself reflecting on how one act of kindness, his invitation to share a meal with Jake, had sparked this chain reaction. It made him realize how interconnected their lives were. Often, it only took one person willing to reach out to ignite hope within others. One afternoon, as he walked past the bustling market, Tom bumped into Richard near a stall selling freshly caught fish. "Tom!" Richard called out with an infectious smile. "I've been meaning to talk to you about expanding our initiatives further." Tom's curiosity piqued as they stepped aside from the hustle and bustle. "What do you have in mind?" "I've seen how much this community thrives when people feel connected," Richard explained earnestly. "I want to establish an annual festival, something that celebrates not just our heritage but also invites visitors from afar to experience what makes this town special." Tom considered this idea carefully. It could highlight local culture while fostering relationships between visitors and residents. "That sounds promising," he replied enthusiastically. "We could showcase local crafts, music, and of course, our fishing traditions." Richard nodded excitedly. "Exactly. I'd love for you to help spearhead this project. Your connection with the community will be key." Feeling honored yet slightly overwhelmed by the trust placed in him, Tom agreed without hesitation, seeing yet another opportunity to weave kindness into the fabric of their lives. As plans for the festival unfolded over the coming months, Tom witnessed firsthand how kindness could transform communities. People who had once felt isolated began uniting around shared goals. They discovered strengths within themselves they never knew existed. The festival grew into something more than just an event. It became a celebration of resilience and creativity that encapsulated everything they had worked toward since Richard's arrival. On the day of the festival, vibrant colors adorned every corner as laughter echoed through the streets filled with booths showcasing local artisans. Musicians played folk melodies that resonated through hearts eager for connection, and families gathered around tables overflowing with food prepared by their neighbors. As sunset approached and golden light bathed everything in warmth, Tom took a moment to step back and appreciate how far they had come together, their struggles now interwoven with stories of triumph shared among friends standing side by side united under skies painted with hope anew. In that radiant moment filled with joy and anticipation for tomorrow's possibilities brimming brightly ahead, one small act of kindness transformed lives beyond measure, illuminating paths woven intricately beneath starlit nights forevermore welcoming. As the festival wrapped up in a flurry of laughter and vibrant celebrations, Tom took a moment to step aside from the lively crowd. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the sounds of musicians playing, children laughing, and neighbors sharing stories over tables laden with homemade dishes. He absorbed the beauty of it all, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment wash over him. The past months had unfolded in ways he had never anticipated, catalyzed by a simple act of kindness, a shared meal with Jake that sparked a chain reaction of compassion and community spirit. Tom reflected on how reaching out in that moment of vulnerability had not only changed Jake's life but had inadvertently set into motion a series of events that transformed the town itself. His heart swelled with gratitude as he thought about Richard Marlowe, the billionaire who had taken interest in their struggles and decided to invest not just money, but his time and energy into helping the community thrive. Richard's presence had inspired hope among residents who had long felt overlooked. It was evident that wealth could be wielded with generosity, and Tom marveled at how one person's willingness to give back could ripple outwards, affecting countless lives. Yet, as he stood there amidst the celebration, Tom recognized the importance of his own role in this unfolding story. He had grown from the quiet fisherman he once was, often lost in his thoughts about survival and struggle, to someone who actively engaged with others and facilitated meaningful connections. In those moments spent organizing community dinners, leading discussions, and collaborating with Richard, Tom found a renewed sense of purpose, his identity no longer solely defined by his profession but enriched by his commitment to uplifting others. He realized that the act of sharing, whether it was food, stories, or resources, could bind people more closely than any monetary exchange ever could. He watched as Jake connected with children around the festival, teaching them how to cast fishing lines while other adults shared ideas for future workshops. The sight brought a smile to Tom's face. Here was a man who had once felt lost now becoming a beacon of hope for others. Their bond had blossomed into something incredibly beautiful, rooted in understanding and mutual respect. "Hey, Tom!" called out a familiar voice, breaking him from his reverie. It was Richard, approaching him with an enthusiastic wave. "I wanted to thank you again for your input on this festival idea. It turned out better than I imagined." Tom chuckled, feeling a warmth in Richard's genuine enthusiasm. "It's amazing to see everyone come together like this," he replied. "You really brought something special to our town." Richard's expression turned thoughtful as he glanced around at the festivities. "I'm just getting started," he said earnestly. "This is just the first step. There's so much more we can do together." A sense of purpose ignited within Tom at those words. "Let's keep building on this momentum," he suggested, his voice steadier now. "We can expand our initiatives, set up more regular community meetings, work on job training programs, whatever it takes to ensure everyone feels involved." Richard nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. Let's make this a collaborative effort," he agreed. "Your insight is invaluable. I want you to help lead these efforts." Tom felt a mixture of pride and humility wash over him. In that moment, he recognized that he wasn't just facilitating change, he was part of something much larger, a movement anchored in kindness and compassion that resonated far beyond any individual. He glanced around at the faces illuminated by joy and laughter, at the flourishing relationships forming before him. Standing under the fading light of the festival as evening approached, Tom understood that this was merely a new chapter, not just for himself but for the entire community. Each act of kindness, big or small, had the power to spark transformation. It created ripples that spread outward in unexpected ways, impacting lives far beyond what one could initially perceive. As he joined Richard again in planning the next steps for their initiatives, Tom felt hopeful about the future they were building together, a future where compassion thrived and connections deepened, illustrating perfectly how intertwined their stories truly were. The night air began to cool as stars dotted the sky above them like promises waiting to be fulfilled. With laughter still echoing in the background and hope alive within every heart gathered there, Tom couldn't shake off the feeling that they were only at the beginning of something wonderful, an adventure marked by generosity and solidarity destined to illuminate paths ahead for everyone willing to embrace it fully.